good. Yeah. Okay, good evening. I want to pick up from our last shir, a couple of weeks ago. And I want to use today to wrap up the topic we've been on, and then next week in Mirza Hashem, if you guys are still around next week, I want to move into a new area. I want to use today's class to finish off this idea we started on. We started by talking about the idea of evidence for why we believe in God. Where's the proof? Started with the idea of design, moved into this idea of an infinite and a finite and a first cause, really the Rambam's idea. Chovos Halevavos talks about it in Sha'ar Yichud. So I want to sort of round off the topic like this, that when you discuss the idea, why do we believe, where's the logical evidence that there's an Ein Sof, that there's an infinite that created a finite? So we end up saying really two different things. We end up with saying there's a strong logic, I would say an unassailable logic, that backs up the idea that if there's a finite, there must be something else called infinite. And at the same time, we can't actually know anything about the mitzias of what infinite is. Even to call it infinite, I think we mentioned this last time maybe a little bit, even to call it infinite just means it's a thing that's not finite. It's a thing that has no limitations. We're not actually giving it any positive description. We're just saying there must be something beyond the finite that created finite, otherwise finite wouldn't get here. The last point we made was we said, okay, even if you have the idea of an infinite making a finite, now you're stuck with another question. If infinite has no limitations, if infinite is all-encompassing, then how can you possibly have the idea of a finite? If there's an infinite, where is there room, so to speak, for something else other than infinite to exist that we call finite? Right? Even calling it, say there's an infinite and there's something other than infinite. What does it mean, something other than infinite? Infinite doesn't have limitations. There's no room, not just space-wise, but there's no room conceptually for the idea of something other to exist separate from infinite. So the way I presented the idea, it's really my understanding of Shar Gimel and Nefesh HaChaim, that the best way to understand the mitzias of finite relative to infinite is to say that it's really just called Ratzon Hashem. That just like when you have a Ratzon in your mind, you think of something in your mind, I'm thinking about a tree, I'm thinking about a cup of coffee, I'm thinking about a balloon. When I think about something, the thing that I'm thinking about in my mind has some level of reality. If I'm thinking about a balloon, it means right now, as long as I have a Ratzon, that there should be a balloon in my mind, the balloon is going to be there. Does the balloon really exist separate from me as a separate real balloon? No. It's inside of me. It's a part of me. Does it have no existence at all? No. There's something there. There is a balloon there. So my relationship with the balloon in my mind is I'm constantly giving it existence every moment by willing it to exist. When you find in the Lashon of Kabbalah the idea that we call the world a gilui of Ratzon Hashem, it's like the balloon in your mind, the tree in your mind is a gilui of your Ratzon. Kolzman that you're thinking about it, it's there. That's why also in the brachos we say, Birchos Kriya Shema, we say Hashem is machadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid maseh bereshis. Hashem is machadesh tamid maseh bereshis. Every moment, every microsecond is another chiddush of creation. It's tamid. It's a constant existence. And that's how we understand the idea of infinite and finite existing together. The Ramchal, if you look in the beginning of Maimar HaIkarim, the Ramchal says that there's three different bechinas of Hashem that we can understand. We can call Hashem a Borei. Borei just means there must have been something in the beginning that made us, right? There's a finite, there must have been something that made the finite. That's Borei. Second, he says, is Hashem is not called just a Borei, he's called a Mekayim. He's a Mekayim. That's the idea we're talking about now. He's involved constantly. He's sustaining all of existence. He's sustaining every molecule at every moment. The third Bechina, the Ramchal says, is that Hashem is called also a Mashgiach. He's a Borei, he's a Mekayim, and he's a Mashgiach. Borei is, he created. We wouldn't be here if there was no desire for Hashem to create. Mekayim is, it wouldn't exist at this moment. if Hashem wasn't at this moment keeping it existing. My heart is beating right now because Hashem has a ratzon for my heart to beat. There's a fly flying around the room because at this moment Hashem has a ratzon for that fly to fly in that angle, in that direction at this moment. That's Mekayim. Mashgiach is a whole new idea. Mashgiach is the idea that Hashem is doing it with a tachlis in mind. There's a purpose to what He's doing. He's not just stam maintaining existence for the sake of maintaining existence. There's a reason for it. And that's what I'd like to discuss today, which is that the more we appreciate this idea of infinite, sustaining, finite, every molecule is here because at this moment Hashem is keeping it going, the more we appreciate that idea, the more it leads to two other very yesodi questions in Hashkafa. And beginners ask this question all the time. It's a very important idea in Kiruv. Fundamental questions that come out of this idea. Question number one that I want to tackle is, how do we understand? Well, I'll do them in different order. Question number one that we want to understand is, why? We understand how Hashem creates. He's willing existence at every moment. Why is He doing it? What's the purpose of Hashem doing it? Why are we here? Hashem needs us. He was bored. He had to create because He had nothing else to do. Hashem's an infinite, unlimited being. He's not lacking anything. He's not missing anything. He's not bored. There's no such thing as time before He creates time. So it's a little difficult for us to understand, why would an infinite being go ahead and create a finite world? What's He going to get out of it? What's the point? What's it going to do for Him? It's not going to do Him any good. So question number one, why create? Question number two, if Hashem is sustaining every molecule at every moment, then how do we understand free will? When I'm moving my hand right now, I mean, if I'm just a figment of God's imagination, is this me moving my hand or is this God moving my hand? If it's Hashem moving my hand, so I don't have any free will. If it's me moving my hand, not Hashem, so what does that mean? I can do things that are not Ratzon Hashem? I'm a figment of God's imagination, and yet there's a part of me that can be independent of God and do my own thing that's not what Hashem wants me to do? How's that possible? Right? If I can imagine a tree in my mind, I can make apples grow on the tree. The only reason apples are growing on the tree is because I, as the mikayem of the tree, are making the apples grow. If there's a tree in my mind, I can't tell the tree in my mind, go ahead and do whatever you want. The tree's a figment of my imagination. It'll only do what I want it to do. It has no independence. We have independence. We can choose to do not what Hashem wants us to do, and all we are at the same time is just a figment of His imagination. How do those two fit together? So question number one, Tachlis Abriya. Question number two, Bechira. And we want to answer both of those questions in the context of Hashem is an infinite being creating it every second, and we're just living within His mind. Tachlis Abriya. So the famous lashon the Ramchal uses, which we tend to use to answer this question, Ramchal in Das Tuno says, Derech HaTov Hu Lahetiv. Why did Hashem create? Derech HaTov Hu Lahetiv. Hashem is Tov. Hashem can't really ultimately be Tov unless He's being a Meitiv. So Hashem has to create something in order to be Meitiv, that something should be there to be Makabel the Hatava. But if you think of that idea on the surface level, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Hashem is a Tov. Hashem's Mida is Tov. So therefore, until Hashem creates, He's not really expressing Tov. He's lacking something. He has to create in order to become a Tov B'Shleimus. Doesn't make any sense. Because that would say that Hashem needs to create. If He doesn't create, there's something lacking in Him. It's impossible. You look at the Rambam in the beginning of Yesodei HaTorah. He says the first thing we understand about Hashem is totally bilti talui on the Bria. Hashem doesn't need us. Hashem's not lacking if He doesn't create. It's impossible. He's an infinite being. He's lacking nothing. So when the Ramchal says Derech HaTov Hu Lahetiv, what does he mean? It can't mean what we think he means. There has to be something else that's going on. So let's explore the question from a bit of a different angle, and we'll see what the Ramchal is really saying. When we ask a question, why did Hashem create? So we realize there's a built-in difficulty in the question itself. When we ever ask a question like why do you come to Kollel? Why do you eat lunch? Why did you go on a diet? Why did you talk that way to your wife? Why did you sleep in? Why didn't you sleep in? When you ask a question like why, what does the question why always assume? It assumes that you have some desire or some need that you're trying to fulfill. Why did you get up early? Because I wanted to happen early. Why did you get up late? Because I wasn't feeling well. Because I was tired. Because I didn't hear my alarm. I had a need. I had a desire. There was something going on that made me sleep in. Why did you eat lunch? Because I was hungry. Why did you skip lunch? Because I was on a diet. I wanted to lose weight. I want to eat. I want to lose weight. I want to get married. I don't want to get married. I want to be friends with a guy. I don't want to be friends with a guy. Whenever we ask the question why, built into the question why is what's the need? What are you trying to get? What are you pursuing? What are you lacking that you're trying to get? You're trying to gain weight, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to eat, you're trying to sleep more, you're trying to sleep less. There's something you're running after. So if we were to ask, why did Hashem create? The question makes no sense. Why did Hashem create? Meaning, what's he getting out of it? What need did he have to create? What desire did he have to create? Hashem can't have a desire to create. If Hashem had a desire to create, then until he creates, he's chaser, because he hasn't created yet. He's missing something. He has a motivation that hasn't been fulfilled. So there's a built-in difficulty with asking a question like, why? Doesn't work. There's another built-in difficulty, which is that we realize that when we try and ask the question, like what was going on with Hashem deciding to create, when we look at that whole idea of Hashem deciding to do anything, we look at it from our human perspective. I think of it like this. This is the mashal I like to give to the beginners. I say, imagine an alien coming down that's never met human beings before. Alien coming to visit planet Earth, they've never met human beings before. They want to see what makes us tick, what makes us do stuff. So an alien spends 24 hours on planet Earth just seeing and observing human action. This guy's playing a game of basketball, this guy's doing drugs, this guy's going to rehab, this guy's getting married, this guy's getting divorced, this guy's stuffing his face, this guy's going on a crash diet, this guy's in university, this guy's dropping out of university, this guy's making money, this guy's giving away his money. So a Martian looks around the planet for 24 hours and says, wow, human beings are so contradictory. They're all going in different. This one's trying to gain money. This one's trying to get rid of his money. This one's trying to get a girl. This one's trying to dump a girl. This one's trying to lose weight. This one's trying to gain. Everyone's running in different directions. Everyone's running after something else. There's no way to understand human behavior until you understand that there's one basis that underlies every human behavior. We're all trying to fulfill our lackings. We're all trying to become shalom. Some of us want shleimus with money. Some of us want shleimus with our body. Some of us want shleimus with our relationships. We're all chasing after things that we think we're going to gain from. We're all chasing after things that we think are going to make life more fun, more fulfilling, more happy, more comfortable, more of something or the other. We're always chasing. You could be frum and chase after frum things. You could be fry and chase after fry things. We're all chasing. We're all looking for things. The Chovos Halevavos in Shar Avodas Elokim says, every human being at the end of the day is motivated by his own pleasures. We seek pleasure. We can seek pleasure in Ruchnius, we can seek pleasure in Gasmius, we can seek pleasure in mitzvahs, we can seek pleasure in Averas. All we're doing is constantly running after pleasures. When we take after our kids, it's because it gives us pleasure to take after our kids. We're nice to our wives, it's because it's good for us to be nice to our wives. We're not nice to our wives, it's because in that moment I actually feel like it's better for me not to be nice to my wife. I'll yell at her. I'll probably pay for it later, but I'll yell at her because that's what feels good right now. I'm chasing after a short-term pleasure. So if the sum total of all human desires and drives and motivations is fulfilling our own needs and desires and pleasures, how can you possibly understand a being that's not shaykh by? Hashem doesn't need, Hashem doesn't lack, Hashem can't benefit by creating. Hashem can't become happier, more fulfilled, bigger, stronger, prouder. Hashem can't go through that change. An infinite being that's beyond time can't change, can't become something. So what's pshat? How do we understand when Ramchal says, Derech HaTov Hu Lehitiv? So the way I think we'd have to understand it is this. Really, I'll ask the question from a different angle. We'll see how this really answers the whole thing. If you try and understand for a moment the idea of an infinite being, no needs, no lackings, no desires, no limitations, nothing missing. Before the Bria, all there was Hashem. No time, no space, no humans, nothing existed but Hashem. So what makes more sense? As much as we can understand the nature of an infinite being, what makes more sense? Does it make more sense to say that that being is going to go ahead and create a finite physical world with a bunch of people on it? Or does it make more sense to say, Hashem's not going to do anything? He's not going to create, He's not going to sustain, He's not going to make us, He's not going to put us here. What makes more sense in line with the nature of an infinite being? To go ahead and create and sustain a whole existence? Or to not bother and just leave, just be himself and not have anything? What's more in line, logically, with the nature of infinite? To create or not to create? So how many of you would say it logically is more consistent for Hashem as an infinite being to create? How many would say it makes more sense not to create? Right? It makes much more sense not to create. He's not going to get anything out of it anyway, so why bother doing it? And yet we see that here we are. He did it. He did it. He didn't need to do it. He's not going to gain by doing it. He did it anyway. So in retrospect, now that we're here, we look back at the Maisa of Breishis and we say, if Hashem did it and He can't possibly benefit from it, but He did it anyway, there's only one possible conclusion. He must have done it for our sakes and not for His sake. What does Hashem get out of it? Absolutely nothing. It's a total matana. But it's a matana in a non-human form. Human matanas, going back to what the Chavos Levava says, a human matana is, I give somebody a birthday present. Now, are they nehene? Of course, they got their birthday present. Am I nehene? Yeah. I like buying people presents if I care about them. It makes me feel good. I benefit and they benefit. Every matana, every act of chesed that we do as human beings, the recipient benefits and the giver also benefits. It's inevitable. There's no such thing as a human being of doing something for somebody else where you don't gain by doing it. There's no such thing. No matter how altruistic you are, no matter how idealistic or how lishma you are, at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you, so why do you do it? On some level, you got something out of it. You want to do a voda lishma. Why? But I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for Hashem. But why are you doing a voda lishma? Because I know Hashem wants me to do a voda lishma. I gain by doing a voda lishma. I'm not focused on the fact that I'm doing it for my gain, but I'm doing it because my motivation is I want to be an Eved. I want to be lishma. We're always gaining. With Hashem, it's impossible to gain. So when the Ramchal says derech hatov hu lehetiv, he doesn't mean Hashem be'etzem is a tov, and therefore Hashem had to be meitiv. He doesn't mean that. What he means is there's nothing we can say about the midos of Hashem. What makes Hashem tov? Who deemed that Hashem is tov? It's now the mafreya that we're living in this world and we look back at what He did. We don't say that He's tov. We say the maisa that He did was a maisa of hatava. He didn't have to create. He doesn't gain by doing it. And dafka, because He didn't have to, and He did it anyway, that's why it's called an act of hatava. When you do a chesed for somebody, I could say, you know what? As much as you were really doing it for them, I could tell you that you were really doing it for yourself. You want to be a Baal Chesed. You were gaining by doing the chesed. By Hashem, it's not shy to say that Hashem gains by doing it. So we look back and say, not that Hashem is be'etzem a tov, who has to do tov. We say that Hashem is infinite. I can't say Hashem is tov, or big, or round, or square, or smart. I can't apply midos to Hashem. But I can apply midos to Hashem's hanhaga, or Hashem's decision to create. So we say the bria, the decision to be borei, was a decision that's based on hatava. Hashem is a tov as far as I'm concerned. Klape, my relationship with Hashem. I look at Hashem as doing an act of chesed. Pasuk in Tehillim says, Olam chesed yibane. We look at the Bria as the ultimate act of chesed, the ultimate act of I'm doing something totally for somebody else's sake, and it's so much for them, I get absolutely nothing out of it. And that's only shaykh by Hashem. So the way the Ramchal says this in Derech Hashem, just to summarize the idea, the way the Ramchal says this idea in Derech Hashem is very simple. In Chelik Aleph Perek Beis, the end of the first siman, the Ramchal says, therefore, the lachein, you have to look and realize the whole tachlis of your existence is to be neheneh from the Bria. You're there to be neheneh from the Bria. And you should know, in terms of kiruv, this is probably the most basic, fundamental paradigm shift that anybody has to go through if they want to chap what Yiddishkeit is. We come from a Western world that's very Christian, that's very focused on, it's all about doing things for God. God needs your service. You have to make God proud of you. You have to make God happy. You have to serve God. You have to serve your Creator. You owe it to Him. He has demands on you. You're obligated to listen to Him. That's how Christianity presents it. So Torah comes along and says, no. You have to realize that at the end of the day, you're doing what's good for you. Hashem's whole tachlis in creating you was to give you this gift called life. He gave you a gift called life. Why did He give you Torah? Because He wants you to enjoy the gift as deeply as you can. He gave you a book of instructions so you can really enjoy the gift deeply. You look at people trying to get the most out of life without any set of instructions. It's terrible. You can get lost. You can have horrible relationships. You can get caught up in gashmias. You can live a materialistic life and not realize there's a whole ruchnius, there's a whole depth. You have no idea what you're missing. So Torah comes along. It just gives you hadracha, instructions on how to get the most out of life. If the deepest pleasure that a human being is capable of is the pleasure of having a spiritual relationship with the Creator of the world, then it makes sense that Hashem is going to give me the instructions on how to maximize having that relationship. I tell guys all the time, I say, if the whole tachlis of Hashem creating you is to give you life as a gift, and then He gives you a book of instructions to make the gift better, to give you an ability to really maximize enjoying the gift, then it means that ultimately you should look at every mitzvah as a pleasure. You should really enjoy Shabbos. The only reason Hashem gave you Shabbos is because He wants you to tap into life on a deeper level and enjoy Shabbos. If you look at Shabbos as an obligation, like Nebuch, I got to keep Shabbos. I got to learn Lamates Malachos and all the Avos and all the Toldos because I got to keep Shabbos because there's Gehenim if I don't. It's true, there's Gehenim if you don't. But Hashem didn't set up the system because He wants to put you in Gehenim. It's not a game He's playing with you just to see if you can make it to the end and get your Olam Haba. Hashem wants you to enjoy life deeply. He wants you to enjoy Ruchnius and Olam Haza. He wants you to enjoy a Chaye Olam Haba. He wants you to enjoy life deeply. Right? When when a person has kids, you realize, you ask any parent, what do you want from your kids more than anything else? I want my kids to enjoy life. I want my kids to have deep pleasure. I'm going to make them go to school and do their homework and study for the tests and brush their teeth and dress up warmly in the wintertime and look both ways before they cross the street. I'm going to push them to excel. I'm going to give them skills. I'm going to give them hadracha. But my whole tachlis with my kids is I just want them to enjoy life as deeply as they can. When you see your kids, chas v'shalom, not listening to you, going off, not paying attention, I don't care about school. I don't care if I fail. I'll drop out. We look at our kids like, chaval, kid, you don't know what you're missing. I'm going to make you go to school. I'm even willing to threaten you. I'm willing to impose a system of reward and punishment. You better go to school or you're going to be grounded for a month. You better do well in your math test or you're not going to be able to play with your friends. Not because I want to punish you. And not because I want you to play a game of rewards. Because I want you to get pleasure out of life. And the more you study and the more you're educated, just the more opportunity you have. You can enjoy life more deeply. You know how to add up numbers. You know how to spell properly. You know how to read. I'll make you do what I know is good for you. I'll even force you and threaten you to do what's good for you because I have a better sense of how much pleasure life has to offer if you listen to me. So the whole context of Torah and mitzvahs and really the concept of schar va'onesh is all in the context of I want you to tap into life and get the pleasure as deeply as you can. Yeah. Right, meaning... So what I'm saying is goof at that point. You're right that if we would say that he had to create them, if it was like we were... If the starting point was we were there complaining to Hashem, like, Hashem, how come you didn't make me yet? I want to be made so I can enjoy the world. Then yeah, Hashem has to do it because he wants to shut us up and give us something so we'll stop complaining. The fact that I'm not even there to notice the fact that I don't exist, that's goofa why it's called a matana. It's exactly why. I'll give you a mashal. I'll tell you a maisa. I had a few years ago, I took my kids to the park. I think it was Bein Hazmanim. We went for a picnic at, what's it called? The Gana Yehoshua, right? It's a big park near Tel Aviv. So my wife made a very nice picnic. We're out at the a corner of the park. Very nice picnic. Food, sandwiches, cake, dessert, watermelons. We had a nice time. Then I remembered I had to get something back at the car. My car was 20-minute walk away, the parking lot at the other end of the park. It was late in the afternoon, so fine. I go by myself. I walk over 20 minutes to the end of the parking lot, other end of the park, go to the parking lot, get the stuff out of the car. As I turn around at the edge of the parking lot, there's a guy selling ice cream. You know, the little guy with the bells and the bicycle ice cream thing. You know, Artik, whatever, selling ice creams. And he's packing up. He's getting ready. It's the end of the day. He's closing up shop. He's getting ready to leave. So I'm thinking, I could buy my kids ice creams. It would be nice. But Lamaisa, they don't need them. We just had a delicious meal. They're not complaining. They're not waiting for me to come home with ice cream. They don't even have a hava minute that there's a guy selling ice cream. If I come back without ice cream, they're not going to complain. They'll be perfectly happy. There's no need at all for me to buy them ice cream. They'll be perfectly happy without it. So you know what I did? I bought them ice cream. Why did I buy them ice cream? Purely so that they could have the pleasure of enjoying ice cream. Not because they were lacking it or needed it or demanding it or expecting it. So that's called an act of... Now, Lamaisa, because I'm a human being, and I have my own shtick and my own needs, you could say, why did I really buy them the ice cream? Because I want my kids to like me, and I get nachas out of seeing the smile on their faces when they eat the ice cream. That's true. But Lagabe Hashem, it's the same first nakuda. The nakuda that I'm doing something for the other purely so that they could enjoy having it. I don't get anything out of being the giver. They'll get something out of being the receivers. So again, the point that Chavos Levavos is really making is there's no human analogy to this idea of Hashem being a Baal Chesed. Every example in human terms of a Baal Chesed, it's always a two-way street. There's the Baal Chesed being the giver, there's the Makabel being the receiver, and both gain. There's no example where you don't have that happening. It's always the case. So all we're saying is with Hashem, it's a one-way street. Yes, there's the idea that I'll do something for what you'll get out of it, but Klapei Hashem, he can't get anything out of it. So that's called an act of total chesed. You know the joke they say, father comes home at the end of the day, goes to his 11-year-old son, Yankel, did you do any mitzvahs today? So Yankel says, yeah. Me and 14 of my friends helped an old lady cross the street. So Yankel, that's very nice, but I don't understand. Why do you need 14 friends to help an old lady cross the street? Yankel says, well, she didn't really want to go. Right? That's not called chesed. Chesed is I'm doing it because of what you're going to get out of it. I don't have a need to do the chesed. If it's me needing to do the chesed, you're just being the object so that I can be makayim my chesed. Here we're saying the opposite. I'm doing it purely because of what you're going to get out of it. I gain nothing. That would be pure chesed. And like I say, in human terms, there's no such thing. Yeah. Nochla Adam Shalom Nivra. Look at Tosfos. Tosfos over there says that only a tzaddik is on the darga of really escaping the idea, because anybody short of being a tzaddik gamur, as much as we enjoy existence, when we get upstairs, we're going to realize, you know what? There's so much more I could have had. I regret the fact that I didn't get as much out of life as I could have gotten. It is a chesed, because that's only talking from a human perspective when we realize how much more we could have had. It's not saying, the Gemara is not saying that our whole olam haba is regretting the fact that we existed. It's not what the Gemara is saying. Right? The Mesilas Yesharim says it befeir. She says, the second line of Mesilas Yesharim, Hine mashahuruna chazal, shaha'adam lo nivra ela le'zaneg al Hashem. Right? The greatest tachlis is to have lisanag al Hashem. A tzaddik gamur gets that to the degree where they have no charata in this world at all. Anybody short of a tzaddik gamur, there's the bechina we have in Gehenna. I'm going to look back and say, Nebuch, I could have done so much more. I almost feel as if it wasn't worth being born because I could have done so much more and I blew it. That's a Gehenna experience. But we get past that, and we have our Olam Haba, and every one of us has our Chelek, and the whole Mehus of Olam Haba, it's enjoying the existence that Hashem gave me, and enjoying whatever darga I got based on my accomplishments. Any other questions on this point? Okay. Like I said, it's mamash, a tremendous paradigm shift. You're dealing with a guy who's not frum, who walks in the door, starts talking to you. He looks at you, Kippah, Tzitzis, Shabbos, Kashrus. He looks at you and his automatic instinct is to think, okay, you're dedicating your life to making God happy. God put a bunch of demands on you. You decided to accept them. You're spending your life trying to serve God and make Him happy, hoping that one day you'll get to heaven and He'll pay you for all the hard work you put in. That's how people look at it. So to be able to turn around and say, are you kidding? I'm only doing this because I'm trying to tap into the same pleasure you are. I'm trying to get it in a deeper way. Why do you spend all day watching movies? Because it's fun. Because it's pleasurable. Well, you know why I'm learning? You know why I'm working on my midos? You know why I'm trying to improve my davening? You know why I'm careful about keeping Shabbos? Do you know why I'm developing my emunah and bitachon? Because I want to get deep pleasure out of life. Not just for Olam Haba. I want to get deep pleasure out of life. Right? The Rambam the Rambam in Sefer Mitzvahs on Ahavas Hashem, he says the greatest tanuk a person can possibly have in Olam Haza is the pleasure of being connected to Hashem. The last Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, right? A person should have Ahavas Hashem on a darga where they're shogeg hatamid, holy ahava, like you're madly in love. We want to live a life in this world of deep spiritual pleasure. Learning Torah should help me get there, and Avodas Hamidus should help me get there, and Shalom Bayis should help me get there, and Shabbos and Tefillin and Kashrus should help me get there, and benching b'kavana, and having real Hakaras Tov. Those are all tools to help me reach a darga of really enjoying how great this life can be if I'm connected to Hashem. That's the ultimate goal. Yeah. Say again? Fun, yeah. He's having more fun, but fun is always temporal, superficial, doesn't last long. Even the guy who's chasing women every day and sleeping around, he knows the day's going to come where he's going to want to settle down and have a real, deep, intimate relationship with a wife. He knows the day's going to come. Right now he's having too good of a time, he doesn't want to settle down yet. But anybody will tell you that the more I can tap into deeper pleasure in life, the better off I'm going to be. Right? We would say really, I'll put it in very black and white terms. The ultimate difference between a tzaddik and a rasha is that a tzaddik has a very refined understanding of what real, deep, fundamental, long-lasting pleasure is, and that's why they're investing in the real stuff. And a rasha is just too short-sighted. They're both chasing after pleasure. They both want to have a deep experience of life. The rasha is just too out of control, or too undisciplined, or too short-sighted, or too uneducated to realize that it's worth going for the good stuff, and if you don't have, and you can avoid having the cheap stuff. You don't want to spend your life eating potato chips if you can have a delicious meal. Potato chips are fun once in a while. They're nice. I'm going to live my life on candy. If I can have a delicious gourmet meal that's worth putting the time into, I'll enjoy food more deeply. If I can take time before I eat food to appreciate how delicious it is, it'll be a more meaningful experience. So again, the difference is just that the tzaddik is more serious and more focused about how to really enjoy a fulfilling life, and the rasha just isn't willing to take the time to focus on it. That's a very important distinction. Last question, I want to move on. Yeah. Say again? Why can't you decline it? Because you're not being real with yourself if you think you're declining it. But what I'm saying is, it's not that it's your problem. It's that you're being logical. You're fooling yourself. You're being inconsistent with yourself if you think that you're willing to decline pleasure. Nobody ever declines pleasure. We decline pleasure only because we think there's more pleasure in declining it. that this life is too painful, right? So all we're saying is you can't commit suicide because Torah demands of you to get more pleasure out of life. You decide not to keep Shabbos, it's the same thing with your kids. You won't let your kids get away with, you know what? Your kids come to you and say, you know what? I think a grade 4 education is enough for me. I'm not going to get any more. I don't need to go on grade 5, grade 6. I don't need any of that stuff. So why do you make your kids go to school? Because if your whole tachlis for them is to get a deeper pleasure out of life, you're not going to let them shortchange themselves. When your kid says grade 4 is enough, you're not going to let them get away with it. You're not even give them the option to decline it because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're missing out on. It's not a fair choice. A kid in grade 4 can't say, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I know enough. I don't need any more reading and writing skills. I don't need to learn how to Gemara. I don't need to know how to add up numbers. It's a silly thing to say. You're only saying it because you don't know any better. So because of your ignorance, I'm not going to let you shortchange yourself. I'm going to make you do what I know is good for you. And the day's going to come when you graduate, you're going to look back and you're going to thank me. In terms of what? Yes, the midrashim about the neshama clinging on to the kisei and not wanting to come down. Yeah, is the neshama realizing it? Neshama doesn't know. So you should know, the whole debate in Das Tvunos, the whole dialogue in Das Tvunos is the neshama and the what's it called, and the seichel. It's the neshama and the seichel. The seichel understands. The neshama is the one that's asking all the questions. Why am I here? I don't get it. I was so much happier when I was upstairs. What's the point of being in Olam HaGashmi when I can be in Olam HaRuchni? The neshama doesn't understand. The neshama is short-sighted. Seichel is the tool that you have to really understand what your tachlis is. I know it gets into a whole different topic. Last question, I want to move on. Yeah. Why did Hamad Yusuf have to be reality? That would take me 5 minutes to answer that I don't want to take right now. So save it for next time or whatever. We'll talk after. I want to go on to the second nafkamina I said, right? We said like this. And again, this is a tremendous nafkamina. If Hashem is an infinite being that needs nothing, then it perforce means the only purpose for Hashem to create is there for our good. Hashem created us to get pleasure. That's the only way to look at it. The Ramchal talks about it. The other Sfarim talk about it. There's not a machlokus on this nekuda. The second question, the second kasha that comes up here is, how in the world can we have Bechira? What does it mean to have Bechira, right? Hashem puts Adam in Gan Eden, tells him not to eat from the Eitz Hadas. So how are we supposed to understand it? Adam goes ahead and eats from the Eitz Hadas. Does that mean that Adam had his own independent ability to choose not to listen to Hashem? Hashem has Adam in his mind. He's creating him. He's instructing him. He's being mitzvah. Don't eat from the Eitz Hadas. How is it even shaykh for Adam to be independent of Hashem to say, I'm going to do what I want. I don't have to listen to Hashem. Every molecule of your being is Hashem's ratzon. The only reason your mind works and the only reason your brain cells are functioning is it's all ratzon Hashem. You're living in Hashem's mind. And you can go against Hashem? How's it possible? What does it even mean? Elamai, we're going to say the opposite. We don't have Bechira. If Adam ate from the Eitz Hadas, it must be that Hashem wanted him to and he's just a puppet. Obviously not. The very fact that the Torah talks about Schar Va'onesh. I asked Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal once, I said, where do you see in Torah very clearly the idea of Bechira Chofshi? Where do you see in Torah the idea we have Bechira? It's not, Parashas Re'eh, Hinei Nosin Lefanecha, Esa Tova, Esa Ra, Esa Bracha, Esa Klala. He says that's not it. He says you see the idea of Bechira on every page of Chumash. It's on every page of Chumash. Every time Hashem gives you a tzivui, that's telling you that you have Bechira. Every time Hashem says, do this or don't do that, there's schar if you do it, there's onesh if you don't, that's Hashem telling you, it's up to you. I'm not going to make you do the good thing. I'm not going to make you do the bad thing. I'm giving you the choice. I'm being mitzvah you. I'm telling you clearly what I want you to do. I'll punish you if you don't. I'll reward you if you do. But the very fact that there's a tzivui means Hashem is saying the decision is in your hands. I'm not going to make you do it. You're the Baal. That's how we know we have Bechira. Torah tells us. But what does it mean that we have Bechira? How do I have an independence from Hashem? So when the Gemara says, Hakol b'dei Shemaim chutz mi'yir Shemaim. Hakol b'dei Shemaim chutz mi'yir Shemaim. So what's the Gemara saying? The Gemara is saying that the only thing that is not b'dei Shemaim is your Yir Shemaim. We have to define what that means. But clearly what it means is that there's many, many things in life that we think we have bechira over that we don't really. There's lots of things we choose that really have nothing to do with bechira. When you choose what kind of clothes to wear, or you choose what kind of food to eat, or you choose sometimes how you're going to relate to people, or you choose what kind of music to listen to. That's not called bechira. Hashem gave you a certain personality. Hashem gave you a certain background and certain parents and a certain genetic disposition, a certain history of experiences that made you a kind of person that makes certain choices. That's not called bechira. That has nothing to do with Yiras Shamayim. That has nothing to do with mitzvahs. When the Gemara says, what the Gemara is saying is, the only thing you have control over are your moral, spiritual choices. Your aspects of avodas Hashem, that's where you have control. And even there, how much control do we have? A person's born into a frum home. They have that much choice. A person's born into a non-frum home. They have that much choice. A person has a problem with anger. A person has a certain weakness in a certain area. That's their choice. Even in avodas Hashem. Some people have an easy time concentrating on a Gemara. Sometimes some people have an easy time focusing on their davening. Some people just get distracted easily. That's a choice. You realize even in the spectrum of avodas Hashem, it's really like Rav Dessler says, you have your nakudas of bechira, you have the area within avodas Hashem, within Yiras Shamayim, you have the area where you make choices, but even beyond that, you don't have choice. There are certain things, Rav Dessler says there's a range where you have choices. There's certain things, there's certain dargas of avodas Hashem that are so lofty, it's not shaykh to any of us. None of us sit down at the end of the day, the way the Vilna Gaon did, and make a cheshbon of how many seconds of Bittul Torah we had today. We're not holding on that level. Maybe I can make a cheshbon of how many hours of Bittul Torah I had. How many seconds? It's impossible. I'm just not holding on that darga. There's certain areas of Averas that are so far beyond us, it's not even shaykh. None of us are going to get a lot of schar in Olam Haba for the fact that we didn't murder anybody. If we were born into a world of rotzchim, in a ghetto, in a place where there's murder all over the place, and it's hard not to because I'm raised with it, it could be I would get schar for not murdering. But me, living in Yerushalayim, it's not shaykh. I've never even thought of murdering. Well, I've thought about it. I've never seriously thought about murdering somebody. It's not much of a mitzvah for me. So there's a range of bechira. There's things that are on the high end, there's things that are on the low end. That's the only area where you're making choices, even within avodas Hashem. Let me just finish one point. Even within that, here's the ultimate solution to the problem. Even in those areas of avodas Hashem, how do we understand that we have bechira? Because what we understand is, if Hashem is lamala min hazman, Hashem puts me in a situation to begin with. He gave me parents, He gave me circumstances, He gave me incidents that happen in life. Hashem put us in the situation that we're in. Hashem knows what choice I'm going to make. You walk into an empty room, and there's a wallet that was left there. Hashem set it up that way. He made the guy leave his wallet in the room, knowing that you were going to come in next and be in the room there with a wallet with a bunch of money. Hashem set it up that way to begin with. You have a choice. There's a mitzvah lo signov, there's a mitzvah not to steal the money, but you feel like stealing the money, you're making a choice. But the fact is, Hashem knows in advance what you're going to do if He lets you walk in that room. If Hashem wants the guy's wallet to get stolen, Hashem will let you walk in the room and steal the wallet. If Hashem knows that if you going in that room, you're going to steal the wallet, Hashem will let that situation happen if Hashem wants that guy's wallet to be stolen. If Hashem doesn't want the guy's wallet to be stolen, Hashem will set up a situation where you don't walk in that room. You trip on your shoe and somebody else walks in the room first. As you're walking in the room, the guy misses his bus, he comes back and he finds his wallet. Hashem can create circumstances enough in every one of our lives that even though we make choices, my choices can only have an effect in the world, can only actually do things, if Hashem wants those things to happen. I can make a decision I want to kill somebody. Hashem will only let me get away with it. Find the gun and find the guy and be in the right situation. He'll only let me get away with the situation if Hashem wants the guy dead. That's the whole idea of Hashgacha Pratis. Which means ultimately, there's always two things happening. Yes, I have Bechira. I decide if I'm going to steal a wallet. I decide if I'm going to do chazara on my Gemara. I decide if I'm going to call in sick or not call in sick. We make choices. And at the same time, the only way my choice will ever have an effect is if Hashem wants the effect to happen. So what effect is my bechira really having on the world? None. My choices aren't what makes things happen in the world. The only nafka mina to my choices are the effect it has on me. I make good choices, I made myself a tzaddik. I make bad choices, I make myself a rasha. But in terms of before making a difference in the world, if something's supposed to happen, it's going to happen one way or another. The ani's supposed to get the money, he'll get the money, whether I'm the one who gives it to him or not. So why should I be the one to give him the money? Because it's a mitzvah for me to give tzedakah. But for me to think, there's a guy who needs money. If I give him the money, he'll have money. If I don't give him the money, he's going to die. His life is in my hands. If I mamash feel that way, has nothing to do with Hashem, his life is in my hands, I'm being a kofar. That's kfir for me to think that I can mamash affect the destiny of another human being. I can't do that. I'll do my ishtadlus. But at the end of the day, if Hashem wants the guy to live, he's going to live. If Hashem wants a man to die, he's going to die. We believe in Hashgacha Pratis. So the nafka mina to my choices are only the nafka mina of how it affects me in my own tzidkus and my own avodas Hashem. Which means Hashem runs the world in a way where he's in total control. Whatever happens on any level, in any way, for any person at any time, is exactly what Hashem wants to have happen. And that doesn't at all contradict the fact that I make bechiras every step along the way. Hashem lets me make those bechiras to the extent that those bechiras end up being what Hashem wanted to have happen. Yeah. Sorry? Yes, what we're saying is the very fact that you can make the choice, even the choice to do the Avera, is really Ratzon Hashem if Hashem wants you to get away with it. If Hashem didn't want you to have that option, He wouldn't give you that choice. You might think, well, when I'm choosing to do an Avera, I'm choosing Keneged Ratzon Hashem. You're not choosing Keneged Ratzon Hashem. You want to do the Avera? Fine. Hashem has a plan for you. If you want to be a Baal Avera, go ahead. It's not Keneged Hashem's plan. It's part of Hashem's plan. So I'm saying it's not a contradiction because you could have made a choice to do the right thing, and that's also part of Hashem's plan. Hashem set it up where you have an option of A and B, but dafka only A and B. Those are the options because as far as Hashem is concerned, both options fit into Hashem's plan. You want to do A, the world's going to go this way, and that's what Hashem wants. You want to do B, Hashem will set it up that B also accomplishes what Hashem wants. So you make choices which affect you, but they don't affect the world. Sorry? He was matzavi you to choose A, because A is the right thing. Because he has to give you the ratzon to have the option to choose B, otherwise A isn't really a mitzvah. B is there as a potential for you to do, because A is only a mitzvah, B is an avera. You can't get schar for doing the right thing unless you have the option and the possibility of doing the wrong thing. And if you decide to do the wrong thing, Hashem says, fine, go ahead and do the wrong thing. It still fits into my plans. You'll suffer in Olam Hazeh, you'll suffer in Olam Haba. You decided to steal from the guy, it's fine, the guy needed to be stolen from anyway. You didn't actually affect the guy, you only really hurt yourself. You want to live that way, that's a possibility. That's fine, you can do that. In the end, you're not affecting Hashem's plan. You're affecting yourself. The fact that Hashem gave you the option of doing that means, yeah, that's an option that Hashem gave you, because in the end, you'll fulfill Ratzon Hashem by doing that. It'll be the harder way, it'll be the more painful way, but in the end, you're still being Mekayim Ratzon Hashem by going the wrong way. You just suffer for no reason because you could have avoided it. What time are we at? We have time for the last question? It's 6 o'clock. Let's stop now. 6 o'clock. I'll take questions up front if you have any.